Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Hello.
Ooh.
Hey, guys.
It's been a long time.
Jason?
Yes.
Jason. Mike.
That's close enough.
All right. Gobble, gobble. Welcome back to the show. It's Monday. It's November 30th, and we're back again.
We are
fresh off our turkey episode.
Oh, man.
The Megalodon.
Fantasy stuffing.
Yeah, there was a tremendous reach out on Twitter from the Foot Clan, getting the hashtag fantasy stuff and finishing up that monster episode. I wasn't sure anyone would be able to do it, but
it was a big boy.
They came in quick and steady.
It was fantastic, and we really appreciated that.
Well, we are recapping most of the past week. We've got the Monday night game tonight. This is the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, and you can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. You can find us on the web, thefantasyfootballers.com. And how was your holiday?
Oh, it was jolly.
Yeah?
Quite
Did you
jolly.
eat a lot of food?
Oh, my goodness, I had so much food. I quickly, because as both of you guys know, I'm a very fast eater.
Yeah.
It's not a joke. That's
so
weird. It's weird at lunch when Jason and I sit down and Mike's like finishing his last bite.
I'm a healthy eater. I love me some eating, and I'm halfway through my Chipotle burrito, and I look over at Mike wiping his mouth with a napkin.
Yeah.
Anyways, go on, Mike.
So I very quickly demolished 2 full plates and very, very full plates. Which I did the lean back, did the
open the pants,
the groan, pushed the last part of breath out of my body, and then they're like, oh, we got the dessert.
Ooh.
Firing up the oven, which somehow in my brain I completely forgot about dessert, and then of course I had dessert to go on top, and had me some pumpkin pie, and it was just glorious until I was watching those early football games. And almost vomited because they were so bad.
America.
I learned a lesson last year that I put into practice this year. I can't have back-to-back pieces of pumpkin pie.
Oh, you got
covered in Cool Whip. I've tried to do the back-to-back, and it just makes me sick. I need a little buffer.
What you have to do is you got to take a half a pie and eat it at once as one slice, and then you're fine. But when you do back-to-back, I completely understand.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And this is a true story. This is the second year in a row that Joik Bell put a shellacking on me.
Woo!
Because I got the full brunt of his multi-touchdown game last year. And this year, Joik Bell has done nothing. I have ridiculed him frequently.
Yes.
And lo and behold, my opponent had placed Joik Bell against me, and the Detroit Lions were monstrous this Thanksgiving.
Weren't you having a really hard time deciding between Todd Gurley or Joik Bell this week?
Yeah.
Which guy you thought would be better?
Joik Bell, the number 8 running back this week.
Well, I don't want it to be forgotten because we didn't get a record on Friday, or we had the big episode, and I labored for a matter of a couple of hours on Thursday morning. I had a big matchup. So the league that I was 1-4 in to start the year, I am now 8-4.
Very well done.
Thank you to Matt Stafford this week because I sat Brady down on Thursday morning, and it was kind of a crazy story because I felt like I looked at the decision so long that if I now didn't play Stafford and he blew up, I would feel like I made a horrible mistake because I had just been looking at it. And I was in Safeway getting some Thanksgiving final fix-ins, and my phone couldn't get coverage when the when the actual waivers went through. I knew I had Stafford on my team, but I was inside of Safeway,
and I couldn't put him in your roster.
I couldn't put him in my roster, but the game, our waivers to when the game started was only like a 30-minute window, and you never know when they're going to lock. So I was like in panic mode in the line, turning my phone on and off of airplane mode, trying to get Stafford into my lineup. Fortunately, I did, and he pretty single-handedly won me the week.
Yeah.
But we've got we'll be talking through all the games in Fantasy Rewind today. We've got our Fantasy StudMuffins, our Pooped in His Big Boy Pants. We've got the Monday Night Preview, got the Mailbag. Got a lot of good stuff today. Glad to be back, kind of, sort of. I had a rough yesterday. Yesterday was not good. I had some bad food.
Yep.
After we talked, and it had nothing to do with Thanksgiving. This was all fat. This was fast food. This was I want to watch the afternoon games while I eat something.
From the toilet.
That might have been better, to be honest with you. I was pretty much knocked out completely from like 3 o'clock on yesterday. And then when I finally kind of came to, I'm laying in the chair. I'm miserable. You guys knew. I was texting you guys. I was flat out miserable. Still don't feel good. And as I'm coming to, all I do is see a writhing Rob Gronkowski on the ground.
Oh.
And I'm like, this is a dream. This is a bad dream. So I guess we'll get into all of that. Quick question of the day. Which quarterbacks are you comfortable with for the playoffs, starting every week of the playoffs? So you've got the big guys. You got Brady, you got Newton, Palmer, Rodgers, Dalton, Rivers, or would you still stream if you had those guys?
Ooh.
I would consider streaming with some of them. I would say Dalton and Rivers, to me, are a little bit more. I would probably go with them over most options, but I would consider it. I'm not going to consider it from here on out with Brady, with Palmer, or with Rodgers. Probably, I'm gonna put those three.
Or
in.
Newton.
Yeah, Newton is kind of on that border for me because I see him as a really nice high floor. You know, he gets near that 17 to 20 point range, which is great. But if I need a big game, I feel like I can stream that almost easier sometimes than Cam. But he can get big games too. We've seen 2 40-point games recently, but that's my feelings.
Yeah, I agree with basically everything you said. There's not much else to cover.
Cam has Atlanta, the Giants, Atlanta.
Yep.
You're probably playing him.
The danger for Cam Newton, honestly, is his defense against Atlanta. Matt Ryan is going to turn the ball over, and they might score. And if they score like they did on Thanksgiving, then Cam Newton just doesn't have to do anything. So his fantasy points go down.
The Falcons are terrible. They're the worst 6-5 team I've ever seen play football. They are not making the playoffs.
I would agree.
Wow. All right.
There is no way. Not with 2 games left against Atlanta.
Oh,
against
Carolina.
And they're losing. I'm sorry. Yeah, against Carolina, and they're losing so many games. So, yeah, they were a tough thing to watch this weekend, especially for Julio owners.
Weekly Rewind.
All right, let's get into the quick news of the day. I might as well start with this. Rob Gronkowski went down in a heap yesterday.
It looked horrific.
I mean, I have Rob Gronkowski. He's part of that team that's come back from 1-4, and I have Brady. So it's kind of like 2 players are writhing on the ground there. Like Brady's also grabbing his knee horribly. Now reports are looking better. He was carted off the field, but they said I was reading tweets that he was walking onto the bus, without crutches, without a limp. It was funny that the news reporting on Twitter got so bad. It was like, Rob Gronkowski, he appears hydrated right now. He appears very hydrated. He carried his luggage. Rob Gronkowski's luggage is packed well. Like, it was any report that was breaking, according to Rob Gronkowski, was coming out. So what do you guys think? Is he we don't know much. He's still getting an MRI today.
Yeah, we got to get the MRI results in today, but there was a really good angle of the injury, and he hyperextended his knee, something wicked. So you can understand
the pain.
The pain that he was going through. It was the same knee that he destroyed earlier in his career. So you combine how bad it hurt with just
the fear.
Instantly when he went down, he went, not again.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm done.
Yep.
So
doesn't want to that like I don't want to look down. I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want to believe it. I just need to move my upper body, and there was some of that in it. So the nice thing is his foot wasn't on the ground, so it gave his leg the ability to kind of whip with the knee. So hopefully he misses 1 week or maybe 2 weeks and comes back for the fantasy playoffs. Really hoping he misses this week.
Well, if he comes back in 2 weeks, he's back for the playoffs.
Yeah.
For most leagues, but if he misses
this
more
week,
than 2 weeks.
Andy and I, in our league of record that he's been talking about, are going head-to-head this week for the bye week into the playoffs. Somehow you've managed.
I have to outscore you, and it's not going to help losing
the Gronkowski. I'd mentioned this to you guys. The injury reminded me very much of the Robert Griffin when he was playing against the Ravens. I don't know if you guys remember it.
RG3.
Yeah, he was basically horizontal, and I think it was T. Suggs at his leg, and it did a similar thing where it whipped.
Yep.
So moving forward,
We'll learn a lot more this week.
With the information that's coming out, I think he'll be okay long term.
All right, so he misses.
He's going to miss a couple weeks.
So how bad does that affect Brady? Because you've already got no Amendola, no Edelman, no Deion Lewis, now maybe no Gronk for a week. Yeah, Keyshawn Martin did nothing. Scott Chandler got involved a little bit.
Scott Chandler.
But you know what's amazing is you can just see such a difference between Chandler and Gronkowski.
Yes, but Scott Chandler he got 11 targets yesterday.
I know.
He's going to be
so you're signing him.
He's going to be a hot pickup.
Yeah, okay. I think so. And I think this pushes Amendola back a little bit faster. If he was on the cusp next week, I think that they really could use him. If he comes back, I think Brady's going to be fine.
So the perfect season's over.
Yep.
Did all they could. Brady seemed to come a little bit unraveled emotionally at the end of that game. Just not that I blame him with all that was going on. All right, Jimmy Graham. Report on Jimmy Graham is much worse than the report on Rob Gronkowski. Worst injury probably that an NFL player can sustain. He tore his patella tendon.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham. That is
he's
rough.
29 years old.
We saw in recent history what we've seen. We saw Victor Cruz take one. He tore his patella tendon last season. He's missed the entire year. Not surprising. And then I'm drawing a blank on the running back name from Arizona.
Ryan
Williams. Yeah. And he tore his patella tendon, and his career was done. And Jimmy Graham is 29.
Yeah, I think this is a career-ending. Not to say he's never going to come back, but he's never going to come back and be the same dominant force, because this is an injury that's going to take a full year to get back from. We're already late into a season. So if he can come back next year, it's not going to be game one. So now you're talking about him being 31 years old, coming off of a year and a half.
It's going to be challenging.
Yeah, it's
going
to be tough.
So Big Ben was not on the field for the last drive due to the concussion protocol. However, they said he's expected to be cleared. He was moving along. His symptoms were going away very quickly. So, wait, what is that? Does it say Roethlisberger does not have a concussion? Is that the report?
The last I read is he had reported in the game. He was the one who self-reported symptoms, so they took him back to get evaluated, but
just to make sure.
Yeah, I haven't heard
so
that
he
didn't have one.
Yeah, everything says he's going to be back at practice and he's through it.
Couple injuries for the Cardinals. Chris Johnson and Andre Ellington both left the game. Both went back to the locker room.
Yeah, it's David Johnson time.
David Johnson got a touchdown in the game. Kind of a dirty game for the Cardinals. They snuck by Blaine Gabbert in the division.
Thanks to the refs.
So if Chris Johnson and Ellington are out, how do you feel about David Johnson against the Rams. Next
I like him very much. The Rams, as much as people love the Rams defense, they have been brutal against the run in the last few weeks. I mean, we saw Jeremy Hill having his best game of the year against the Rams until, of course, Jeremy Hill kind of twisted his ankle, but he said he's going to be fine. So I love David Johnson moving forward. I believe that the offense of the Cardinals can be better as long as David Johnson's not fumbling the ball, clearly, but I think he is a boost to this offense.
The one thing I'll say about David Johnson being on the field is that he is a more capable pass catcher out of the backfield than Chris Johnson is at this point in his career. And so if that aspect is there in one player versus kind of like CJ and Ellington were both of those guys, we'll have to see what happens. I think Chris Johnson will probably be back. That's my hunch. So Bill Lazor was fired this morning in the season that never ends for the Miami Dolphins.
Don't play the Jets. The Dolphins, they went to London, played the Jets, got some coaches fired. They go to New York, play the Jets, get a coach fired. But I think this is good news for the running game. You've seen the imbalance that originally got them fired, and Guns Mahoney says, I want to have a more balanced team. They have a more balanced running attack, and then they get away from that in the last couple weeks, and then Bill Lazor gets fired. So I'm not saying that, oh, good, Lamar Miller's back to being a great option. I think you're still going to have the games where you just get game flowed out of a running game entirely because you're not good enough. However, I do think this is better for the running game in the sense that they want to be more balanced, and Bill Lazor is completely willing to go away from it, coming from the Bill Belichick system or the Chip Kelly system.
Tannehill, I believe, threw the ball 61 times yesterday.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those difficult things because you can spin it in a positive way, but you're still talking about a very bad team. I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about a bad team trying to figure out the pieces and these.
My question now for the Dolphins and their play calling situation moving forward, a question I'll put to you guys. With Lamar Miller and J.J., you got a basically similar workload in the game, and Devontae Parker went ham towards the end of the game.
Strong words. 4 for 80, though. He scored a touchdown.
4 for 80 with a touchdown. That's a good game.
I agree.
But moving forward, with the season's probably lost, even though, I mean, if things got turned around real quickly because the AFC is so tight and terrible, maybe you could sneak in. But I think basically the season's over. Do they start giving the young guys like Ajayi and Parker, who are the future of the team, do they start giving them more looks with Lamar Miller's on a contract year? There's not much buzz about him getting re-signed by the Dolphins. So does Lamar Miller – now, he won't get phased out, obviously, but does he go to a 50-50 while they try and take a look at the new guys?
Yeah, I mean, 50-50 hasn't meant as much. I don't read too much into it with a smaller workload like this. But, yeah, you got to take a look at Ajayi. Ajayi's been efficient and good. Both guys stunk in this game. But, I mean, the last few weeks, Ajayi's outperformed from an efficiency standpoint Lamar Miller. So, yeah, you got to take a look at them, and they're part of your future. Devontae Parker not being on the field has been a travesty.
Yeah,
the only reason he got on the field was Rashard Matthews' injury.
Yeah, Devontae Parker, I agree with. Actually, the last few weeks, Lamar's been a little bit more efficient. A couple weeks ago, Ajayi was definitely coming on hot. I think with Guns Mahoney there, he needs to win to show other franchises I can be an NFL head coach. You know, I don't see them bringing him back. So he's playing for his future, I think, more than the Dolphins' future, and that to me says try to win now at all costs. I'm curious who it was. You know, was this the owner that fired Bill Lazor? Was this Guns Mahoney's decision?
Dan Campbell is his name.
Yeah.
His name's Dan Campbell.
Well, yeah.
Just so anybody is curious who you're talking about.
If you haven't been listening, you don't know who.
You can.
But here's the truth. If you hear Guns Mahoney and then you see the current interim head coach of the Dolphins.
Dan Campbell.
If you see him, then you know who we're talking about.
He is a beast.
He is. Dan. Yes.
Okay. All right, let's move on.
All right.
This week's Fantasy Stud Muffins.
All right, Matt Stafford's at the top of the quarterback list, guys that performed incredible this week. I believe it was his best game since 2011. 27 for 337, 5 touchdowns. Dominated a Philadelphia defense that is can barely be called that. I mean, they're very bad right now.
Things went south real quick for the Eagles, where I felt like they were a decent defense.
So I listened to the show, part of the show last week, and we talked about the Eagles' defense, and you asked me the question directly: would you play the Eagles' defense against Detroit? And I wasn't. I couldn't remember what I said, but what I said is, whenever you have a week like you did against Tampa, you better wait a week to see if that's a trend. And that's kind of what the thought process was, because I had somebody else text me and say they played the Eagles and they're so mad, and I'm like, they just gave up 5 touchdowns to Jameis Winston. If you wanted to roll them out there and roll the dice, go ahead. And it did not pay off. 2 negative weeks in a row.
The game started at 10:30. At about 10:10, I dropped him.
Yeah.
And I made the last second decision. I was like, I'm not screwing around with this. And it was that paid off.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what did not pay off for me. Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think some people might want to hear you speak about that.
I did not like Russell Wilson coming into this week. He had not been efficient. People probably felt more positive of him because he had that huge week against San Francisco, his best week of the year. So I didn't like him. He was my sit of the week, and then he has the best game of his career.
5 touchdowns.
With the Steelers had been playing good defense. It wasn't that I thought Russell Wilson would be 0 touchdowns. I expected him to have an average game. I was very wrong, and Russell Wilson would just crushed the Steelers defense.
You know what was really weird for me this week? Because one of the reasons that I liked that as a set of the week was Pittsburgh was coming off the bye. Normally, the teams coming off a bye, I mean, you've seen it this year. They have really had the upper hand. Not this week. You had the New Orleans Saints, the New York Giants, and the Pittsburgh Steelers so far as the 3 teams that have played coming off of bye. And they all gave up. I mean,
And the Browns tonight, right?
Yeah, the Browns tonight. So that's just weird. I don't remember the last time where the whole week bye teams coming in just stink. I mean, relatively.
Other guys with big weeks: Ryan Fitzpatrick, Phillip Rivers, Tyrod Taylor, Derek Carr, Blake Bortles. They all had kind of top 10 weeks. Is there somebody that stuck out to you moving forward? Was it good to see Bortles kind of bounce back in that way?
Yeah, it was nice to see Bortles bounce back. Unfortunately for Blake Bortles, the line of scrimmage became an issue where if he could just move that forward a couple yards on his plays, then he would have had a few more touchdowns. Allen Robinson would have had another touchdown. Unfortunately, that's against the rules.
Yeah, you can't run past it and then throw.
So that was a problem.
They just added that.
For me, Derek Carr was great to see him get back on track. Not that we really doubted he would.
Really, really nice game-winning drive in the rain with a minute left against Tennessee.
Yes.
And Seth Roberts exploded, and we'll talk about him. All right, let's move on to wide receivers then. Doug Baldwin, 6 for 145 and 3, the main beneficiary of the Russell Wilson big day. Sammy Watkins.
Whew, man.
Huge day for Sammy Watkins.
Watkins and Taylor had it going, and it looked nice.
It going equated to, I'm going to throw the ball up to you over and over again.
Yeah, well, and that's
really what it was.
That's what you need to do with Sammy Watkins.
And it paid off until they stopped doing it in the second half.
And because the Chiefs defense actually played a pretty good game aside from
they lost Justin Houston too.
Yeah, aside from Sammy Watkins was going off, but I mean, the Chiefs as a whole looked pretty good. With Doug Baldwin, what was very funny in that game was it turned into Doug Baldwin versus Marcus Wheaton.
Oh, the two monster wide receivers going at it.
Everyone saw.
What was it, like a combined 350 yards or something like that between those two grade A wide receivers? Now, I've got a question for you guys, though, in all seriousness, about Doug Baldwin or Tyler Lockett or whoever. With Jimmy Graham going down, he was one of the highest targeted players on that team. The reason we have always been all year off of Seattle is because you just don't know. Is it going to be Jimmy Graham? Is it going to be Doug Baldwin? Is it going to be Lockett? Well, Russell Wilson looks like he's throwing the ball more, right? And he's playing well. And now Jimmy Graham goes down, so more targets to go to your wide receivers. So Doug Baldwin, 2 weeks ago was 7 for 134 and a touchdown. Caught 6 receptions last week, 6 this week for 145 and 3. Is he a player that, I think he's worth picking up. Is he a guy that you would start?
He's definitely a 3 to me, and this helps. The injury to Graham establishes his baseline to be at that 5 or 6 catch level to me. Lockett's still going to be involved, but Baldwin's been that guy. He's having the best season of his career right now. He's very reliable, breaking some big plays, scoring touchdowns. I think he had 2 against the Cardinals. It's the game you were referencing. So, yeah, for me, he's at the wide receiver 3. Startable.
Yeah, he's just a flex and a 3 to me still. We've seen what he can do at his peak, but I just don't see it that way. I believe he's had 1 double-digit target game the entire year, about 8 targets on Sunday. So it's just with Jimmy Graham going down, that just bumps up Luke Wilson and the backup tight ends situation in Seattle. It doesn't move the needle very much for me on Baldwin. He's a fine pickup if you want, but he's not anybody I'm losing my priority or spending out the rest of my fab.
Sure.
So Marcus Wheaton and Seth Roberts. Seth Roberts for Oakland had 6 for 113 and 2 touchdowns. Marcus Wheaton had 9 for 201 and a touchdown. These are guys that just flashed, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't go rush out.
Nope.
No. Seth Roberts, his last touchdown kind of came on partially a fluky referee call that allowed them to get there, but that play, there was kind of just a broken coverage, and he was open, and it was just right guy, right place,
And Wheaton was, to me, more of a situation. They sacrificed Antonio Brown over to Sherman. That basically the entire game, and Sherman played a great defensive game against Brown, nearly shut him out. So I think that was just a situation of the Steelers decided, okay, we'll take Sherman on Antonio Brown. If it happens, it happens. If not, we'll feed somebody else. And Wheaton was the beneficiary.
All right, Jarvis Landry had a huge week, 13 catches, 165 and a touchdown. Jeremy Maclin, 9 for 160 and a touchdown, giving me a little bit of hope for my all my Maclin water bets that I made in the beginning of the year. Mostly the one that I hope he gets 1,000 yards. This will help.
That's going to be close now.
Brandon Marshall had a huge game, 9 for 131 and 2 touchdowns. T.Y. Hilton surprised some people, 6 for 95 and 2 touchdowns. And Odell Beckham Jr., 9 for 142 and a touchdown, including that left-handed diving touchdown.
That was nasty.
Nice. Wow.
But they lost.
Yeah. They
and
did.
now the Redskins sit atop the NFC
And
East.
Washington really tried to lose that game. The mentality that they had, it looked like they had shut it down. Offense of, okay, let's try not to lose. That is the worst. And speaking of trying not to lose, Mike Tomlin.
I was wondering if this was coming.
I was watching the game with my dad, and we were having this conversation of, even before the situation came up, like, okay, well, if they get stopped here and they go to 4th down, do you kick the field goal? The situation was they were down 7. Was that what? I think they were down 7 at the time. So it was, or maybe even 6. I think they might have been.
I think it was less than 7.
But so it was kick the field goal or go for it. Big Ben runs it up to the 4, and then do we kick the field goal? And I'm like, no, you don't kick the field goal here. You try to win because let's say you don't get it. Either way, you still have to shut them down, and you have a great chance to shut them down. They're out there 4. Just try and win the game. Don't let them dictate what happens. You be in control. I can't stand it's more of an old-fashioned way of thinking. Maybe and we can debate whether I'm right or wrong. I just don't see why you wouldn't try to score right there.
It's always one of those things, though, that, I mean, not really a counterpoint, just a perspective thing to add in there is it's always one of those things where if it works out, then you're a genius. And if you don't, you're an idiot. I mean, they were down 2. You could have just not given up an 80-yard touchdown to Doug Baldwin to end the game,
But
too.
that's the thing.
But either way.
Your defense was not working. Like, Seattle they were destroying, especially in the second half of that game. The Steelers could not stop them. So why not let your really high-powered offense be the ones who control the game?
Yeah, I could see that. So it didn't work out.
No, it did not. It did not work out. Neither did that fake field
That
goal,
was
fake
really
field goal, fake
bad.
punt.
There were a couple bad trick plays this weekend. That was one of them. The Cardinals ran one that was just abhorrent, where they lined Carson Palmer up and had had the backup quarterback in, and then he just handed it off to Chris Johnson around the end that Palmer was on, expecting a block from Palmer. It was just weird. Didn't work. So let's talk about, is there anybody else at the wide receiver position that we need to kind of give a fantasy context to? Or, you know, these are guys you're starting. I mean, it was good for Marshall owners to see him have a big week.
Calvin
owners, 8 for 93 and 3 touchdowns. It's funny. It's like these quarterbacks that have 5 touchdowns. Throw them to somebody.
they target their
Doug
best
Baldwin.
player.
I think it's the 7th Thanksgiving in a row that Calvin Johnson has caught a touchdown.
He's
pretty good.
Well, one of the things that talked me into starting Stafford was that he had 330 yards average on Thanksgiving. So the running backs that had big weeks, you had Adrian Peterson, 29 for 158, 2 touchdowns. Really the most reliable guy right now. Eddie Lacy, 17 for 105. Mike, on the show last week, you said verbatim, this is the week Eddie Lacy gets it going. You said it on the show, 4 for 34 and a touchdown through the air. Really was the guy in Green Bay. And then Deangelo Williams, he had a pretty good game because of all the dump-offs.
Mm-hmm.
Spencer Ware, 19.
The Chiefs, as much grief as I give Andy Reid, that guy knows how to get a running back involved.
Yeah, this is the third one now. And Spencer Ware, I think, was the third best running back this week. I believe the Chiefs have a higher proportion of running touchdowns than anybody in the league. And so whether it's Char West, Spencer Ware, or Jamal Charles earlier in the year. And
moving forward, for those if you are in doubt if Char West is out, Spencer Ware. Nile Davis, we weren't, I guess me personally, I wasn't sure. Maybe Nile Davis gets a little bit more involved, and they're not ready to throw Ware right out there. Well,
nope, they were.
They sure did. So Spencer Ware he's a great play if Char West is out.
Along with Eddie Lacy's resurgence, who we liked at the beginning of the year, you got C.J. Anderson coming back.
Yeah.
Coming back hot in that Snow Bowl last night. 15 for 113 and 2 touchdowns, 4 for 40 through the air. Had a great game.
And he looked great.
But what do you make of the Hillman C.J. Anderson split going forward here? Who do you trust?
It's Anderson to me.
Yeah, when it gets colder, it's Anderson. I still think Hillman looked fine to me. There was nothing Hillman did that made me go, oh, boy, this is it's going to depend on game flow. It's going to depend on need.
and this is something we had talked about last week, was the Gary Kubiak could not run his system with Peyton Manning. We saw it early in the year where they had to figure out how to actually get it so Peyton Manning could
not be under
succeed.
center.
Yeah.
Not be under center, basically.
And Brock Osweiler, they were breaking down the snaps of on the football program.
Yeah, that was
how many shotgun passes did Peyton Manning take, and it's nearly all of them. And then you go to Osweiler, almost everything he does is under center, which allows Kubiak to run his system. And you see finally a healthy C.J. Anderson combined with the actual Kubiak running system.
Yep.
And wow, massive production.
So maybe Anderson can be one of those guys that if you had him on your bench and you need somebody for the playoffs, he might end up giving you games that you didn't expect. Now, Tevin Coleman had a good game, but he had one of the weirdest games because I watched this. He was both simultaneously great and horrible all game long.
Yeah, he had that
dropping pass after pass.
Fumble.
Fumbling the ball at the end of a 45. That was the best summary. His game was running 45 yards and fumbling.
That's a tremendous breakdown of Tevin Coleman's game.
So, and then moving forward, they said, if Freeman's healthy, he'll just be the guy again. So this is a temporary thing for Coleman. I expect Freeman back.
Yeah, I do too. Freeman was out with a concussion.
All right, we finally got a game. Tight ends out of Julius Thomas. How confident are you starting Julius Thomas after a 9 for 116 and a touchdown performance? Alan Hearns was carted off the field. We should have mentioned that in the news. It's reported to be just a concussion. He reported that he's okay, but that was never.
That guy is getting beat up.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Ayupati injury where he was taken off on a stretcher, looked incredibly serious, but actually got through the concussion protocol pretty quickly. So we'll have to watch the practice reports and see how Alan Hearns comes back. But he's played through near death seemingly all year. So who knows? Maybe he'll be back this week. I did like Julius Thomas. He was targeted a lot. I don't know if it was just because you're playing, a team that's got good corners and has been giving it up to the tight end a lot. But it was nice to see him looked for, used. They were drawing up plays for him, and it hasn't really seemed like that so far this year with the Jags. So
if you had to start Julius Thomas, or let's see, next week, Scott Chandler.
Scott Chandler.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just because I know that Chandler will be involved and he'll get 8 to 11 targets, where Julius Thomas, we've seen him completely disappear. So if you need, depending on your team need, if you need huge points, then sure, I'm fine putting Thomas out there. I just think that Chandler will be the safer option, assuming that GRONK is missing the week, especially against the Eagles. So it's Scott Chandler for me.
No, we had Ryan Griffin, Vance McDonald. I don't want to see that name McDonald right now. Cameron Brate. Might give you a hint of what I ate over the weekend. All right, Cameron Brate. So all three guys scored. Here's the thing about Vance McDonald.
He had a farm?
Yes, he had a farm. And back-to-back weeks, he's in our StudMuffins section. But Garrett Selleck went out in this game.
Yes.
So Vance McDonald, sneaky stream for those GRONK owners?
Absolutely. If you miss out on the Scott Chandler sweepstakes that's going to happen this week, why not? Vance McDonald, Blaine Gabbert is targeting his tight end. And Blaine Gabbert has not fallen directly on his face. I've been pleasantly surprised with Blaine Gabbert's play.
Yeah. Anybody else want to talk about? GRONK had a good game. Are we expecting repeat performances from Ryan Griffin or Cameron Brate?
Not going to try to call it.
No.
All right, so let's go ahead and move it on.
Pooped in his big boy pants.
We're going to start this section off with another. This was not in our news either.
Yeah, Tony Romo.
Oh man, there was far too much turkey that occurred this weekend, and our news section was lacking. I apologize for that. Tony Romo, done for the season. Re-broke
the broken bone. But we've got to put him in the pooped in his big boy pants. We can't forget how terrible he played before the collarbone was broken. Okay, 106 yards, 3 interceptions. That was with the healthy bone. So he is gone. He is out for the season. Aaron Rodgers, Mr. number 1 quarterback to start the year, 202 total yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's not what you're expecting from your big stud that cost you an early draft pick.
And if I may, I would just like to take just a quick personal second to hopefully this person is listening, and I may mock them. A person in our league, I tried several times to trade him Phillip Rivers for Aaron Rodgers, Phillip Rivers plus a package of draft picks. And this person is a big San Diego fan. No, this is just results. This is completely results
You're ridiculous. You're ridiculous. He's still Aaron Rodgers. We're in a keeper league. No. Nobody would have taken that trade.
I'm just saying that it worked out for me.
Yes. Okay. Fair. It did work out for you.
This is completely results based.
All right.
This is not the process.
But you can't mock him for not taking
the trade.
Yes,
I can.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So if you're out there, go ahead and give up Aaron Rodgers for Phillip Rivers, according to Mike, the fantasy hitman. Right? How about Breeze? His streak is over. I think he had four.
His touchdown streak.
Yeah, his touchdown streak in a row. He was almost to his own record again. I think he was at like 47 games, something like that. Throws no interceptions coming off of the bye week. No
interceptions.
No touchdowns.
No touchdowns. Well, he also threw no interceptions.
I think he threw one.
Really?
I think so. We should verify.
You are correct.
But for Drew Brees, this is more to me. How about those Texans? J.J. Watt was destroying Drew Brees and his life and his dreams and his hopes, and the Texans defense has really turned it around.
The Texans and Chiefs are the two biggest turnaround defenses in football. They've just I think you can roll the Texans out there against almost anybody right now.
Sponsors have to be happy because they put a lot of cash out to J.J. Watt this year. And I remember the first few weeks of the season being like, man, you're paying a lot of money for a guy who is on a stinky team losing every matchup. And now they're getting their money.
Have you guys seen the new Papa John's ad?
Yep.
With the meat pizza and J.J. Watt.
Can't put it in his mouth.
Oh,
it's
awesome. Funny.
It's very funny.
He does a good job at that.
Yeah.
All right, so
Matt Ryan is our final quarterback.
He's the worst.
Crapped his pants. Matt Ryan, the level of regression from Matt Ryan this year has been just insane.
It's like on a Tannehill level.
Red zone interceptions start to get in your psyche.
Yeah.
You know? And he's going to get down in the red zone. And what do you think the next time he gets in the red zone, especially in 2 out of 3 weeks against Carolina, what's going to be running through his head every time
you
want to
know a hot tip? I got breaking news for Matt Ryan. Listen up, Matt. Throw it to Julio Jones.
No way, man. Last week.
Stop trying to get Roddy White involved so he feels better.
Not last week, but this Sunday, Roddy White out targets.
Yeah.
Julio Jones, what are you doing?
Yeah, and you lost. I mean,
That's so weird.
It is not 2012. Stop it.
It was just tough as a Julio owner. But, yeah, terrible play by Matt Ryan. I don't feel any confidence starting him moving forward. I'd start almost any matchup streaming play over him. All right, running backs that just laid an egg. We have to start with the big boy. The one player in all of fantasy football that had never had a game that he started with less than 100 yards or a touchdown, the no-bust games as a starter. Todd Gurley, terrible game. 9 for 19, 1 for 11 through the air. How much of this can be traced directly to Nick Foles?
A large amount of it. And as much as Todd Gurley was my favorite running back coming out of the draft, I didn't like the team he went to because I am firmly on the record of how much I dislike Nick Foles as a quarterback, and I just thought the situation was going to be really hard for Gurley. Well, clearly Gurley was proving me wrong that he could rise above the horrificness that Nick Foles expels for the St. Louis Rams. But here it finally came back to haunt him, and Nick Foles, the freshly extended quarterback for the Rams in one of the most Jeff Fisher moves of all time, to extend your sub-mediocre quarterback before he even plays a game. It's got to be a concern.
But this shows that Gurley is not, in fact, matchup proof. And the reason people were asking me, Chiefs D or Bengals D. I love the matchup for the Bengals at home. Gurley's the reason why I didn't say Bengals defense. It's because you figure Gurley's had success against everybody I thought that might continue. It did not.
Well, we have to keep in mind. So his first 4 games that he started, right, 146 yards, 159, 128, 133, was just dominant, gaining yardage, which, of course, eventually touchdowns come there. But his last 4 games have not, 89, 45, 66, and 19. So
you heard it here first. The death of Todd Gurley.
No. I'm posing the question to you. Early this week, he plays the Arizona Cardinals this week. Where do you see him on a 1 week, this coming week? What rank would you put him RB?
Top 10.
You think he'll
he'll still be a top 10 guy to me. We saw that Sean Drone had success against Arizona.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, the rest of the way, I think the only guy right now that you would want over Todd Gurley is Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So, all right, DeMarco Murray, not a good game on Thanksgiving.
What about the Lions D? Is it just the implosion of Philadelphia? But the Lions D has looked really good for
They're okay.
3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, it's
garbage time touchdown to Jordan Matthews, or else he was shut down.
This is a big week for me for the Lions defense if you're thinking about playing them in the playoffs, because they put up a strong fight against Rodgers, right?
They beat him in Green Bay.
Yeah,
and so you shut down Aaron Rodgers. You take advantage of the Eagles, which you got to play the opponent that you're given. It's not their fault that the Eagles stink, but they showed up. They had a huge game. So this week, who do they play this week?
Green Bay.
Back again?
Revenge game.
This one's in Detroit, though.
Man, okay, let's put that out there. If the Lions defense can have a good game this week against Aaron Rodgers again, then absolutely, then I'll start firing them up.
If that's the case, you got a playoff schedule of the Rams, New Orleans Saints, probably not so good, and then San Francisco.
Where is the Saint game? Is it at home or is it?
It's in New Orleans.
Oh, okay. But 2 or 3 ain't bad.
St. Louis and San Francisco.
New Orleans, the way they played this week, they might be packing it in by then. I feel pretty okay. That's an okay streaming defense.
Yeah,
that's a good point to bring up. Frank Gore had a very bad game, 19 for 24, bunch of carries, no yards. Matt Forte, 15 for 44. It's hard to put him in the section of pooping his pants because he was just slipping his big boy pants back on this week with
one leg in.
He only had one leg in, so I'm going to hold judgment back because that's not the worst game in the world for splitting carries with Langford, but we'll see.
Are they going to continue to split like that? Because they were essentially 50-50.
They're going to split like that, yeah. I mean, maybe 60-40. Yeah. That's about where I see it.
So is Langford an okay flex play for you moving forward?
Yeah, in a running back matchup.
Okay.
If they're going up against a running back or a running defense, probably not. LeGarrette Blount, 9 for 27. Blunt be blunting.
Yeah.
This is what he does.
Yep.
He'll give you 4 or 5 touchdowns in one game every 6 weeks.
Yep.
All right, wide receivers. James Jones and Davante Adams combined for 2 receptions for 14 yards. And Jason?
Yeah?
Why don't you remind everybody?
Remind everybody
about Davante Adams.
Oh, Davante Adams stinks. I said this weeks ago. He still stinks, and he's going to continue to stink.
He stunk so bad that
How bad did he stink?
that Mike McCarthy had to come out and say, not a good game. Not a good game.
He's a big reason for
dropping the ball.
Struggles.
Yeah,
because he's the guy that's supposed to come into that role that was left by your number 1 wide receiver. Let's remind people.
Jordy
Nelson.
Jordy, you burned bright.
Jordy LaForge Nelson.
You didn't burn at all.
Yeah, and
that preseason was great.
And so you see the need for a true wide receiver 1 there, and they don't have it. Davante Adams is not going to be the future there.
Why has the absence of great receivers in Green Bay not translated to Randall Cobb's as a top 5, top 10 guy? That's what I want to know, because even if they're not the best offense in the world,
I think if you look at it,
is he regressing?
It's targets. I mean,
it's not just targets, though.
No,
he
but
can't be targeted.
What I'm saying is that when Aaron Rodgers targets Randall Cobb, his passer rating is still pretty good, but he's still targeting Davante Adams or even James Jones ahead of Randall Cobb. I don't get it. I mean, Randall Cobb, when I watch the game and I watch film, he looks good to me. He's still getting separation. He's getting a little bit more coverage because you can. So it's tougher, but
let me show you this though. Week 11 for Randall Cobb, 9 targets. 2 catches. Okay, single-digit fantasy numbers in
That's no good.
7 of 8 weeks.
It's Jordy Nelson. They don't have someone who can open up the field. They're all bottled up. The defense knows that they can play up, and that's where Randall Cobb does his damage, is close up. That's
so
the type of receiver
we need to have no expectations for Cobb to give you anything then.
No.
Yeah, I mean he's still a guy I'm going to play, but
If you're in
but I agree that there's
I don't know. I mean, Doug Baldwin and Randall Cobb. I'll take Baldwin.
That's gross.
After
that's gross and dirty.
after 8 weeks of single-digit numbers.
That's hard to argue against.
I mean, it's just not happening for that offense right now.
Those
are the hardest decisions in all of fantasy football is name. You see Randall Cobb's name, and you know his potential on the field. You can go back and look at week 3. 7 for 91 and 3 touchdowns.
Do you drop him?
No.
Randall Cobb? No.
Yeah. Okay.
Or is it the play?
Is that the sign of a good player though? Whether he's dropped?
No. I'm trying to say sometimes we hold on to guys because of the name.
Right. No, you're right.
When they should be dropped. And
so then straight up, would you drop? Let's say you're in a pickle. You've got your wide receiver 3 this week. You have no roster space. The only roster move you can make is releasing Randall Cobb and signing Doug Baldwin.
No, I would not do that.
Neither of you would do that.
I wouldn't do it.
But there is a situation out there where there might be a wide receiver I would.
Do you believe Cobb will be better than Baldwin the rest of the season?
I do.
I think
I
so.
do, but I don't. I'm not like, of course he will be.
Yeah.
I just barely think
No, I'm not going to bet it. Because
get your finger away from that water butt. Not happening.
It's just one of those very difficult things. I thought Devontae Adams with the target numbers a few weeks ago.
You doing all right there?
No. Still got some problems going on here. I thought he was going to ascend. He has been terrible. James Jones doesn't have enough in the tank to give you consistent week-to-week play. And if you were one of the smarter ones, the guy in our league got a huge week from James Jones, then benched him this week. And that was the right move because he was a complete gooser.
We don't have an update on Ty Montgomery for the Green Bay Packers, but he is a name.
I think he'll be back
He
this
is a
week.
name to watch.
Yep.
That if he comes back, combined with how bad Devontae Adams is. I know the Jeff Janis crowd out there desperately wants
Is
Janis.
there a crowd? Or is
there on Twitter there is a crowd of people who
just to extend the field?
Yes.
Yep.
Well, they just think that Janis is a better receiver especially than Devontae Adams, which from everything I've read of the team's reporting, it's just Janis's route running is a big problem for Aaron Rodgers. Janis is clearly a great athlete and can make things happen, but he just can't run the routes.
When they're in the red zone, what I'm noticing is Aaron Rodgers looks at one guy a lot, and his name's Richard Rodgers.
Right.
Somehow that's the reliable red zone target right now, or James Jones. So that's hurting, obviously, Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb. Des Bryant, 2 for 26. His season is in trouble with Justin Norman shutting him down in this game, and then the quarterback situation kills Des Bryant.
Yeah,
He can still perform.
Certainly kills his ceiling. You can't every week just say, "Oh, Des Bryant's in my top 5."
Yeah, he's not going to get a touchdown every week the way he does with Tony Romo, generally speaking. He averages almost a touchdown a week with Romo over the last little while, but not happening this way.
All right, pop quiz. This receiver received 13 targets and had 1 catch.
That would be Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah.
What
do you make of that? Because
watching him, he was affected by the cold or just didn't care or was lazy. I mean, he wasn't running good routes. He wasn't getting much separation. Not all. I mean, there were a couple balls that might have been a target to him that weren't catchable, but there were plenty of those where the defender was all over him, and it wasn't just because the defender was great. It was because Demaryius wasn't making good breaks, wasn't coming back to the ball, just wasn't playing that great.
All right, and the last guy I mentioned is DeAndre Hopkins.
I've been waiting.
5 for 36. He had a mediocre, not a good game.
That's a bad game.
But Jason, he's always the number 1. How dare you rank him 15?
You don't even need the pub. You can just do my voice.
Yeah, that's fine.
Didn't you have him the number 1 this week, Jason?
Yeah, I did.
So you didn't see that coming.
No, I didn't. I mean, the
should
game
really
the
narrow
game flow
in your
Houston. The
really
game flow in Houston
predictions
was
right.
amazing because right off the bat you had Hoyer throw 2 touchdowns, but then they got ahead and
an interesting thing because I was trying to figure out what happened with Hoyer. The Texans had 5 players rushed for 20 or more yards.
That's crazy.
Would that be Hoyer, Blue, Grimes, Polk? Who else?
Shorts had a
he played
runs.
some. They did some.
I mean, it was
Wildcat with Shorts.
It was just that's a crazy number to me that 5 guys have that many yards.
They're getting it done.
Hopkins was the 48th wide receiver in a PPR, giving him those 5 extra points in a PPR.
I'm sure him and Julio were right next to each other.
And he was 14th 2 weeks ago, and 2 weeks before that he was 15th.
You heard it here first.
I'm just saying the demise.
DeAndre Hopkins.
No matter what you do,
defend myself.
Hold on. No matter what you do.
Breaking news.
Jason advises: do not start Todd Gurley. Do not start DeAndre Hopkins.
Unbelievable.
Randall Cobb's the guy you want.
I'm just saying it was not crazy to put him 15th in my rankings. You guys.
Isn't part of rankings is what the guy can do for you. There are only a few guys that can do what Hopkins does.
Yes, and you're going to start Hopkins.
And yes, I mean,
I'm just trying to defend myself.
I know, it's entertaining. So, all right, let's preview the Monday night game real quick before we get into the mailbag. Ravens versus the Browns.
Yeah, Matt Shaw versus Josh McCown, Monday night.
The last chance for a bye week team here to do anything good coming off their bye. The Browns.
Here's the best part. The promos now for Monday night, they've just given up a story. They've given up a storyline. They're playing quotes like,
football.
Yeah, no, there's some quote in the background about like, you keep fighting even when it looks like you can't.
Yeah, it's and so let's
please watch.
So unfortunately for my man Buck Allen, the Ravens are having some offensive line troubles.
Significant.
Eugene Monroe is out, the left tackle, and I believe a guard. I can't recall his name at the moment, but so they're going to be out 2 starters. They had already lost someone for the year, so they're literally down 3 starters, which could either be horrific or great because it turns into Matt Schaub has no time and he just has to dump the ball to Buck Allen and he gets 8 catches.
That is the thing that's hard to predict. I think you have to temper some expectations for him, but he's certainly a guy I've told a lot of people to start tonight just because of volume.
Yes.
Volume. Now, I do want to talk about Gary Barnidge because Barnidge has been significantly better with Josh McCown. So McCown's back tonight. What do we expect out of Barnidge?
I like him. The Ravens are horrific on defense. They are notably good against the tight end. But I'm still going to play Barnidge. That number doesn't scare me.
Yeah, Barnidge to me is an average play this week because you have what he's done with McCown against what the Ravens have done against the tight end. They've only given up 2 touchdowns the entire season, 1 game of over 100 yards. So
the nice thing about Barnidge is he gets yards. He's not just one of these touchdown guys. He's not Eifert, which, man. Like I said, too much turkey. Eifert left the game with a stinger, so we have to monitor his situation. Where Eifert has to score, and he's been doing it. But Barnidge is not a guy who has to score a touchdown. He'll get you 70 yards.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and answer some questions.
Mailbag.
All righty, if you have a question for the show, you can go to the website thefantasyfootballers.com. Click on the Submit a Question button. You can also call our voicemail line, 302-464-TFFB. Leave us a voicemail question. I want to say this real quick. Somebody asked the other day, they're like, boy, I just don't know what's going to happen when the offseason hits. Like, they legitimately don't know what's going to happen to the show. They love the show. They love listening to the show every day, and they don't know what's going to happen when the offseason hits. And I say to you, good sir, there is no offseason.
None.
Sincerely.
Football!
Yeah. What we do is we will be recording. Every week. We don't take time off.
Entertaining shows.
This is what we do full time. This is what we do all the time. And we do it because of the support of the Foot Clan and the support of our listeners. And so we're still recording. So you'll still have shows. Obviously, the content's going to change. I'm not going to be able to break down the pooped in the big boy pants section in February. But we'll be talking Dynasty. We'll be talking early season rankings. We'll talk trades. We'll talk
rumors.
Free agency, rumors.
Coaching changes.
Probably some Game of Thrones.
A lot of Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
Look backs on the season, what we got right, what we got wrong. There's a lot of entertaining, fun stuff.
Yeah, and we'll do a lot of prep type shows too, strategic shows about how to succeed in the upcoming year, how to build a good league, how to sustain a good league. A lot of people ask those questions. So, yeah, we're here. That's our public service announcement to you, and I'll mention it earlier in the show in the future as well. But we will be here, and we will be recording, and hopefully I'll feel better than I do right now.
NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reports Rob Gronkowski is unlikely to miss more than one game and may not even miss one.
Wow.
Where's the hallelujah button? I wish there was some way for me to express the joy I have inside right now.
You got to sit him down for a week.
You got to sit him down at least this week so I can retain my bye week.
Feels fine, Mike.
No, the Patriots.
No, that's fine.
You're locked in. You're in the playoffs.
How much fab money do you got left, Mike?
0.
Okay, Jason?
I got plenty. I got like 50.
Yeah, but you don't got bench spots.
That's true.
All right.
That's true. My team's
Adam
too deep
in Detroit. Who's the better play tonight, Crockett Gilmore or Gary Barnage?
Ooh. Crockett Gilmore's a guy I do kind of like because of just Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub not having much choice, running back, tight end targets, but I'll still go with Gary Barnage.
Jason, I'll switch the question up a little bit for you. Who's the more delicious player in your mind?
Betty Crockett Gilmore is the most delicious player. Also, my start of the week at the tight end position. If you're going him or Barnage, I would probably still lean Barnage if you had both on your team. But I do think Betty Crockett Gilmore can put up a great game, can get in the end zone this week.
He really knows how to butter a roll.
Oh, yes, he does.
All right, Marty in Boston, Massachusetts. Russell Wilson or Eli Manning for the fantasy playoffs?
I don't like Eli Manning. I believe has a really bad weeks 15 and 16 playoff matchup wise. I'm not familiar with Russell's off the top of my head.
I can tell you right now. I'm pulling it up. Russell Wilson takes on Baltimore, Cleveland, St. Louis.
Got to go with Russell Wilson.
Russell.
Stay in the flames. He's officially on fire.
Yes.
When you have eight touchdowns in weeks 11 and 12 combined. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the previous 7 weeks.
Yeah, and for Eli Manning, you've got Miami, Carolina, and Minnesota. So not the Carolina and Minnesota in weeks 15 and 16.
Yeah, and Russell's kind of snuck his way up. He was always the guy who's going to give you 20 because he's going to run the ball in the read option enough. He just wasn't throwing touchdown passes.
Or running them in.
And he hasn't been turning the ball over either the past 2 games. So he's really ascending. They're competing for a playoff spot. I think they make the playoffs over Atlanta. And, not a good thing for the other NFC teams because they know how to win in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So last question here.
Patrick in Connecticut. I'm in a very deep league. 20 teams. What? The alarm is sounding again. My options for wide receiver 3 next week are Devin Funchess versus the Saints, Kenny Stills versus Baltimore, or Keyshawn Martin versus Philadelphia. What do you think? Funchess, Stills, or Martin?
Well, I don't think we can trust Martin.
Nope, he's out.
He is out. So you got a Stills versus Baltimore, good matchup. Funchess versus New Orleans,
great
maybe even a better matchup. For me, I'm going to go with the better offense here, and that's Carolina's. I'm going to go with Funchess against New Orleans.
I would completely agree that I would go with Funchess. He's the guy that you know is going to be involved. Stills is up and down. Stills, if Rashard Matthews is going to miss some time because he got knocked out of the game, if he's going to miss time, then Stills might be a decent play because you know that Ryan Tannehill loves him some garbage time.
Yeah, that is true. Oh, the garbage man can.
Were you looking for the drop?
No. So
before we wrap up the show, I just had a personal story I wanted to share of my night. Where are you familiar with the author Charles Dickens?
I've heard of him.
So he has a very well-known story called A Christmas Carol.
Heard of it?
I lived that last night.
That's the ghost of
so I lived the real life Christmas Carol, where I was visited multiple times, but these were not ghosts; these were my children. But they were like clockwork, where I went to sleep around midnight.
What did I just come back to?
I'm telling the story of how I had to live the Christmas Carol as a real life last night. So I went to bed at midnight. 1 a.m. I'm visited by the screams of a baby who has woken. 2 a.m. I am arisen by a child trying to climb into my bed. And 3 a.m. The third child decides to wake me up. So it was just a ridiculous night of waking me up, and it just because of the holiday season, it reminded me very much that I was living a Charles Dickens story.
I've tried to avoid that. We instituted a new policy with our 4-year-old where he receives a star in the morning if he sleeps in his bed the whole night, and then he gets to cash those in for ice cream. And it's been a treat.
I think the adults our age, maybe don't have kids, will be outraged like this, as I am. Kids now get the entire Thanksgiving week off of school.
Not mine.
Oh, really?
Nope.
Mine.
Both of mine.
I enjoyed it. I love my children, Mike. Shame
You're
on
outraged because you wish you had it.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with my parenting.
All right. Okay.
It was when I was a kid, you got Thursday and Friday off.
Yeah.
Back when Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yeah, pretty much. So, all right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for another great week of questions, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
This is it, man.
This fantasy playoffs.
We got fantasy playoffs next week.
Oh my gosh. Some of us might not show up.
Goodbye.
The outcome.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.